Okay. Philosophy 4900. This is week 14. But we are chomping through this semester. We're almost there, almost done, y'all. So we got people graduating. Who's graduating? Both of you? Awesome. Yeah, I'll be there wearing a funny hat, so it's all good. All right, so let's get into today's lecture. Let me pull it up on the big screen here. And hopefully we can get this. There we go. Okay, so we're going to talk about greenwashing. Now, some of this stuff we talked about in a previous section, but we're going to go a little bit more in depth this time. Your textbook by Byers and Stanley, or Stanberry, defined greenwashing as carrying out superficial CSR efforts, corporate social responsibility efforts that merely cover up systemic ethics problems in this inauthentic way, especially as it applies to the environment and acting for the sake of public relations. Hey, Vios, can you get the door? Thank you. So, greenwashing involves presenting a positive image publicly that trying to show that the organization is engaging in ethically sound ways, while in reality, it is not. It is an unethical organization. They're just trying to greenwash it so they look like they are because they want the benefits that CSR brings, namely more customers and things like that, a better reputation. The example provided in the textbook is the ice cream company, Ben and Jerry's, which changed an ingredient when it grew in size. Now, they may not sound like much, but I believe the situation was that they were promoting an all natural product and they went to something that wasn't natural when they began to grow because they had to produce more ice cream. So they had to find different ingredients to source for that quantity. But ethically, it's not a problem that they used a different ingredient. It's that they hid the fact that they were using that ingredient. That's the problem. What they should have done is just admit, hey, we've changed the ingredients because we had to source, because we're producing a lot more ice cream now. So it's not all natural. It's almost all natural. That would be ethically sound. That'd be good. But that's not what happened. Byers and Stanberry also presented the soft drink company Coca-Cola as another example of a business that engages in greenwashing. The company makes it sound like, in its mission statement, that they are committed to sound decision making regarding its stakeholders, that they're engaged with their stakeholders. However, given that 20% of the global population consumes a Coca-Cola beverage daily, a lot of water is required to produce their products, not just Coca-Cola, but all of their lines. The authors noted that this can require 3 liters of water just to produce 1 liter of the soft drink. Now, I want you to think about how this water usage impacts areas experiencing water shortages. Now, Byers and Stanberry pointed out that the company removes millions of liters of water daily just to make the product. Now, think about the water crisis in South Africa. How could a company deprive the local population of drinking water just to generate profit? If you think about places in India where Coke has a pretty strong market share, they bring their plants over there, but then they are using up all the water and the farmers aren't able to use it for their crops. We have a problem with that, don't we? I do. This is greenwashing, or I should say, is it greenwashing for Coca-Cola to state that they're engaging stakeholders in long-term dialogue? Those were the exact words in a mission statement. Is that greenwashing? It sounds like they're engaging with their stakeholders, but in reality, they're causing the water shortage to become a problem. They're using a natural resource in abundance. They're overusing it. So I think that's greenwashing. So as we discussed earlier in this course, corporate social responsibility, or CSR, must be done in good faith. Now, good faith means that the organization shows its interest in improving how it produces goods and provides services. So they have a desire to do better when they enter into doing CSR. Their desire to do CSR isn't based on just their reputation publicly. It's not based on generating a greater part of the market share, profit from that market share. It is based on just improving how it produces their products or provides their services. Now, this takes us directly to the next part of our discussion today, and that is sustainability. Sustainable development. When I was working on I think my second master's, my master of philosophy, and my doctorate, I had to work a lot with this concept. I had to study this concept a lot. And the concept is sustainability orientated innovation. Our innovative ideas need to be something that are sustainable, both from a manufacturing standpoint, in producing the product or providing the service, but also in the resources we're using to make that product or provide that service. We can't be like Coca-Cola and just making 1 liter of our beverage. We use 3 liters of local water because that water now isn't going to be usable by the population. So we're not taking into consideration the stakeholders that are in that area, the community. We're not taking into consideration the environment. So organizations focus solely on the short term, miss the long-term impact of their decisions. And this requires the organizations to engage in ethical stakeholder relationships and work with stakeholders to develop and implement long-term changes. Remember, stakeholders include employees, the leadership, the families of everybody that work there, the local community, your suppliers, your customers, anybody that's affected by it, plus also the natural environment around. The environment is a stakeholder. Some areas, organizations need to consider the global economy. What are we doing in our practices that positively or negatively affect the global economy and the environment, not just now, today, but in the future? You see, tomorrow belongs to you. It doesn't belong to me anymore. I'm 52 years old. So what kind of place, what kind of environment are we leaving for the next generation? Are we leaving a place that's going to be short of water? That's not going to have natural resources like wood, even petroleum? Sustainable development and CSR. Byers and Stanberry pointed out that CSR applied in good faith can help guide long-term change by considering the global impact of the company's decisions in a way that take into account the well-being of the stakeholder. So we got to consider not just the profit we're getting from this stakeholder, but their well-being. You see, consuming water is necessary for life. So if we are causing the water shortage to be worse, we're not taking into consideration the well-being of our local shareholders. We're concerned about our profits only. Multinational organizations have the opportunity to set the example that other businesses can follow. Large corporations, conglomerates, multinational global industries like Coca-Cola, they lead the industry. So smaller companies that create beverages see what they're doing and they think those are the best practices and they apply them. And so all that happens is the problems that Coke is causing are being exponentially increased because all these other smaller companies say, well, Coke is doing it. That must be the way to do this. So the larger organizations actually have an ethical responsibility to do things in a more environmentally conscientious manner, not just for their work, but because they're leading an entire industry. This is a form of corporate paying it forward. If you remember paying it forward, it comes from a movie. And basically, you're in a checkout line and somebody's behind you and they're buying maybe a beverage or a sandwich, and you just pay their bill and go on it. You're not looking for them to say thank you. What you're hoping that they do is later that day or week that they return the favor to another person. So you're paying it forward. So when organizations do things that are ethically correct and sound and virtuous, they're paying it forward because now they're showing the other organizations, hey, we need to be doing it this way. Sustainable business. Now, here I turn to an article by Lee Diane et al. It was published in 2020, and they noted that due to the global population increase, resources must be used in ways that consider the environmental impact. Well, we know this. We've been talking about that already today. The authors further pointed out that the demand to adopt environmentally sound policies has been increasing within the global business community. So there's an awareness, and this has presented numerous hurdles for these organizations to overcome. Success in adopting sustainable practices now relates to competitive advantage for the organizations that succeed in implementing sound policies. Let's break that down. If they overcome the hurdles in implementing CSR properly and they're doing it in good faith, it can benefit their long-term competitive advantage, meaning that their hold on that market share strengthens. Their profits will increase. People are going to talk positively about their product. Word of mouth is the best form of advertisement. It's also free. Or is it? Because in order to actually have a good enough reputation for people to be out talking to everyone else about, you got to put the work in from a point of being good faith. You got to come at it from good faith. In other words, sincere. Now, let's talk about some sustainable business models. Diane et al. Discussed several sustainable business models in their little art, in their, it's not little, in their substantial article. As management theory has developed over the years, it was discovered that there was a link between management theory and business models relating to competitive advantage. So you mean to tell me that how a manager actually manages their organization, their people, their business, that's directly tied to competitive advantage? Absolutely. But the problems between traditional business models and competitive advantage were found to be linked to societal and environmental issues. And so traditional business models striving for competitive advantage, they're having to go against these societal problems. So what is society deeming important and ethical today? Remember, it changes. And ethics change before legislation does. So organizations have to follow legally the legislation. But by listening to societal ethics, they can be a step ahead. They can lead their competition. They can attain and maintain that competitive advantage. What were these organizations to do in overcoming these hurdles? Diane et al. Found that success was directly linked to the organization's ability to embody and join together the three primary dimensions of sustainability, which include the environmental aspects, the economic aspects, and the societal aspects. Can you see effective stakeholder engagement in these? Absolutely. Because remember, the environment and the community are all stakeholders. And the economy, while it's not technically considered a stakeholder, it is something that affects your stakeholders and something that you have an ability to impact yourself as an organization. So these are the three primary dimensions of sustainability. Ledan et al. Mentioned the need for organizations to collaborate in sustainable practices, which entails that they share information, technology, knowledge, and cost, promoting improved competitiveness and economic performance. This will require that organizations work together, but many companies are designed to seek their, underlined, financial gain through holding their technology close, their proprietary secrets, their intellectual property. The ability to collaborate and engage with stakeholders is the hallmark of sustainable business models. And so to have a sustainable business model, you need to enter into collaboration. Collaboration means you're not going to be keeping all the same secrets you traditionally do. Now, I'm not saying you divulge everything, but you're going to have to divulge more. Otherwise, collaboration just won't work. How can you collaborate if you're not willing to share the information that you have, the technology that you have? You can't. The authors correctly pointed out that a sustainable business model is directly tied to sound values. Wow, we go all the way back to the beginning of this class, all the way back to values here. These values then comprise the public image of the organization. And another key feature of a sustainable business model is that it encourages sufficiency, reuse, and environmental performance and focus on eco-friendly solutions. Just breaking that sentence down, we see sufficiency means that you're not relying on additional resources. You're reusing waste, okay? So we're working at a company that makes plastic cups. Plastic is bad for the environment, I know, but it works in this example. Plastic in its raw material form come in these little pellets. So we pour the pellets into the hopper heats them up, we put them through an extruder, and they goes into this machine, we form our cups, and oh my goodness, some of them are not up to quality standards. Do we throw them away? No. We put them into a bin, they get chopped down and added to the plastic pellets. We're reusing items that did not meet our standards. Environmental performance and focusing on eco-friendly solutions. We're not dumping our toxic waste. We're dealing with it properly. We're not overusing the resources. Now let's look at environmental challenges and new opportunities. Back to our textbook, Byers and Stanberry discussed the triple bottom line, TBL, approach to measure the effectiveness of a CSR program. Now, we talked about TBL a number of weeks ago, but we'll just go over it again briefly. The TBL approach is not solely focused on financial profit as the marker of success. TBL also considers the social, environmental, and economic sides of success. So the TBL actually works with, evaluates, and considers the three primary dimensions of sustainability brought up by Ledan. That's a hard name to say with the dry mouth. Ledan et al. Here's a graph showing the TBL, the triple bottom line. You have the company, and it's connected to three other boxes. You have the social, environmental, and economic. Under social, you have employee well-being, fair trade, which is that we're sourcing our raw coffee beans from places and organizations that are not engaged in child labor. That would be fair trade. That's one aspect of fair trade. It's a little bit more complex than that, but that's one aspect of it. You have the community stakeholder, so our local community. Under environmental, we have land use, carbon footprint, and waste. Economic, you have revenue, growth, cost. This is the triple bottom line. Many organizations focus on just the economic. We can't do that anymore. The globalization of business has made it so we need to use the TBL approach. As you can see on the previous slide, as Byers and Stanberry pointed out, the TBL considers as stakeholders including employees, customers, local and global communities, the environment, and the shareholders who are investors. Remember, shareholders are also stakeholders because for them, you're concerned about your profits. They are investing in your company to gain an increase in what they invested. So we do have an obligation, a duty to them. But we have a duty and an obligation to the environment, the local community, our employees, our customers, the globe itself. We have to balance that out. Let's look at market-based environmental policies for a minute. Your textbook included the environment as a stakeholder, which we've done from day one in this class. Environmental sustainability is now considered an indicator of stability when investing in companies listed on the Dow Jones Index. Did you know that? Did you know that that's actually one of the factors investors look at is environmental sustainability now? Which means if our company is not environmentally sustainable, we're not going to draw as many investors as we should or could. Regulatory-based environmental policies. So these are environmental policies that are basically mandated through legislation. Your textbook noted that companies involved in philanthropic endeavors are also seen as aiding their stakeholders, and this can include organizations contributing to or operating health clinics or schools in underprivileged areas, as the textbook notes. Nations have enacted legislation to ensure organizations are mindful of the environment. Agencies like the Environmental Protection Agency here in America, the EPA, help to regulate the companies by limiting the harmful waste that they dump. Now, we did learn a few weeks ago that we can buy the right to dump additional waste, but it's going to cost us. And so it's almost a pay-into system in some ways. They say you can and cannot do this, but you can pay for an exemption. I don't know if that's ethical because we're allowing them to destroy the environment as long as they pay the government. We'd have to consider that in a longer debate. Another way the government has worked to protect the well-being of its citizens is through agencies and legislation designed to act as a safeguard against slave labor. One such piece of legislation is the California Transparency in Supply Chains Act. At the national level, the Equal Opportunity Commission, the EOC, strives to ensure that organizations treat their employees fairly, that they don't harass their employees. So these are things that are mandated by federal, state, and local law. Circular economy and innovation. Kind of taking a little change in direction here. Chong Wen, 2020, and that article is listed in the references here. It's another article I turned to for additional information this week. That author noted that using a circular economic approach is one of the ways to reduce the amount of waste generated by companies. The circular economy can introduce new opportunities to organizations in an environmentally sound way. This approach takes into consideration the limited amount of available resources companies have access to. But due to the potential for ineffective organizational policies, the businesses must use this approach correctly. So what is a circular economy? What does that even mean? Well, let's find out. Chong Wen defines circular economy as being an industrial system that is restorative or regenerative by intention and design, meaning that organizations must find ways to bring old, discarded goods back into the raw material system, back into their supply chain to be made into new products. So when our customers finish using that product and its life cycle is over, we want it returned back into our resource system, our supply chain, broken back down into constituent parts, and we reintroduce it as raw materials for fresh new production. This is known as cradle-to-cradle manufacturing. If you've taken an operations class, you know about cradle-to-grave manufacturing, you know about all these things, but cradle-to-cradle is where it comes in as raw materials. We produce it into an item. It's a good. We send it through distribution, retail, our customers buy it, use it, then they send it in for recycling. It goes back to the cradle, our raw resource inventory, and back into the system. This is a way to reduce the total raw resource consumption and recycle old discarded goods. It's environmentally sound. It's a good practice, especially with dwindling resources. But now we've got to consider, what is the product life cycle? Because we just described the life cycle of a product, but what really is a product life cycle? The product life cycle refers to the stages of growth and decline a product experiences between being introduced to customers and being discontinued. So point A, it's the original ideation, development, creation, customers use it. Now we discontinue it. No one can buy it anymore unless you go to like eBay. Kopp gave the following process for a product life cycle. The steps. You have the idea. You have research and development and a feasibility study. Introduction of the product. You grow your market share. Maturity and decline. The introduction stage. This follows the idea generation and subsequent R&D feasibility study. This is when the customers first begin to see advertisements promoting this new product. So we're creating a new widget. Our customers haven't even heard about it. We've been working on it. We enter into the introduction stage. This is when we introduce an advertisement. If this is an innovative product, the customers may be unfamiliar with it and its benefits. When things like the iPhone first came out, people didn't understand what it could do. Now we have new things using AI, and people are still trying to figure out what AI does. That's something that's innovative. It's new, it's fresh, it's emerged. We haven't had it before. We need our customers to learn about what its benefits are. This stage produces a negative financial expenditure for the company. Companies lose money in the ideation, the R&D and feasibility study, and the introduction stage. They are not getting a profit. But if you think about it, they're investing for a future profit. The growth stage. In the growth stage, a demand begins to develop and production increases to meet that demand, making it more widely available. So we've been advertising it, and we're still advertising it. People know about it. They're starting to buy it. More and more people want it. More and more markets are opening up to it. We need to make more of it. Kopp pointed out that this is when sales begin to increase, which makes the company reduce its initial price. At the beginning, when a new product comes out, it's expensive typically. But once you get to this growth stage, the company reduces its costs because it doesn't have to charge as much. It's starting to get more motion, more interest into that product. So the maturity stage. In the maturity stage, the company experiences the highest level of profitability for that new product. This can often lead companies to become less innovative due to the success of the product. The organization might go, oh, our widget is doing great. We don't need to come up with new ideas to create new widgets. We don't need to do research and development. We don't need to do feasibility studies. We don't need to enter into the ideation stage. We're already doing good. Well, that's a false form of success because it will die down. The organization begins to expand its market share in the maturity stage. Instead of reducing its market share, in the maturity stage, you want to sell even more markets. Now you're saturating the market. Basically, you're bringing about around your product's own obsolescence. Competition begins to increase from other companies. Other companies see your widget, your product, and they're like, we're going to make one like it. They start making it, but now they're able to make it for cheaper. They don't got to do all the work you put into the innovation. Innovation is expensive. When a pharmacy company, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, when a pharmaceutical company develops a new medication, it is really expensive. So they get the intellectual property rights for 10 years and they charge a lot. I mean, a lot. Years ago, about 6, 7 years ago, I was on a medication and it was $7,000 a month for that medication. I took one pill a day. That's expensive. Now, it may seem unethical that they do that, but when you break down why they're doing it, it kind of makes sense. They spend millions and millions and millions, potentially billions of dollars developing that medication, going through the ideation, the innovation, the research and development, the feasibility studies, introducing it to the market. They lost lots and lots and lots and lots of money. So they need to be able to recoup that. So for 10 years, they got the sole rights to manufacture and sell that product. At the end of those 10 years, other companies can make generic versions of that medication. The cost comes down. As competition increases, prices come down. Because now consumers have got more sources to go to for this particular product. Now, the decline stage. In this stage, the competition increases and reduces the company's original success, thus reducing their profit margins. Once again, as competition increases, so do your profit margins and your level of success. This can lead the company to develop a new version of the product to attempt to reclaim the market share. iPhone came out. I don't even know. I think this is an iPhone 13. And it's not the newest one. I'm just showing you this saying iPhone didn't stop with their first one. They came up with new versions almost every 2 years because they're trying to retain the market share that they have. Now, there are benefits and drawbacks to using the product life cycle. The benefits, as Scott pointed out, include a clear portfolio of your products, more precise resource allocation, beneficial impact on the organizational economic growth, and promotes an atmosphere of innovation. There are some drawbacks, which Scott pointed out, including not the best path for every industry or product, may present legal or intellectual property rights issues, may include planned obsolescence. Planned obsolescence is this. You buy a car. Cars are expensive. Why is it that things start breaking down in that car after a couple years? Because when they engineered it to break down. That's planned obsolescence. Because now you have to get the parts to fix it from the dealer typically. Or you go buy a new car. Even the paint of your car is designed to wear out, forcing the customer to go buy a new car. You're you're manufacturing a demand. That's planned obsolescence. Another drawback is it may promote product or resource waste. And in Lean Six Sigma, that's called muda. It's a Japanese word meaning waste. That is the end of today's lecture. Now, we went a little bit into some other areas about manufacturing, but it really pertains to what we're reading about this week. All right. The extra articles that I turned to by Chong Wen and Lidan et al., they're on the reference page. Feel free to take a look at them. They're actually pretty interesting. I found them quite interesting when I was going through them yesterday. Does anybody have any questions about today's topic? Anybody online in Zoom? All right. My Zoomers, those are people on Zoom, and my in-classers. We will have our Zoom session on Wednesday. I'll see you then. Make sure you keep up with your working Canvas this week. Contact me if you have any questions. And y'all have a good... I think that's... Let me double check here real quick. Let me pull that up. Let me get to that page, week 14.
And then how many pages do you want for the final?
You have a discussion on greenwashing. And that is your initial post is due by Friday and 2 replies, meaning to 2 different classmates by Sunday. And then You have an assignment over the product life cycle. And this is going to be a paper, and you wanted to know what, how many pages?
I mean, for the final assignment.
Okay, well, let's take a look at that. This week's paper is at least 4 pages in length. Now, that does not include the cover page or the reference page. Just the body of the paper has to be 4 pages long, double spaced. Let's go to the final. Good question. Almost there. Is that what it says? I'm trying to find that.
After all the bullet points.
Right above the APA.
Oh, yeah, yep, there were 4 to 6 pages. And once again, that does not include the cover page, which please use the cover page. Because it lets me know that you sent the right paper to the right class. Sometimes students will send me a paper, and the first thing that tells me it's the wrong paper is the cover page. I don't have to sit and read it and go, wait a minute, no, I know right away. So, and of course, it does not include your reference page. It's just the 4 to 6 pages. That's the body of the paper, plus your reference page, plus your references. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Any other questions?
No.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
All right, you have a good day now.